Tonight, the Caribbean counts the cost after the most powerful storm for generations. Hurricane Melissa tore through Jamaica, leaving more than three-quarters of homes without power. At least 40 people were killed in nearby Haiti.
It was very scary during the storm. We didn't really know what to expect, so we don't expect weather like this. I've been out in the complex a little bit and seen the actual destruction of what's gone on. It's pretty bad, to be honest.
It lost some of its strength as it hit Cuba. Hundreds of thousands there were evacuated from their homes. Scientists say future hurricanes could become even stronger, so do we need a Category 6? Tonight we'll hear from a tourist and an aid worker about Hurricane Melissa's impact. Plus, convicted sex offender Hadush Kabatu, now back in Ethiopia, tells Sky News he tried to hand himself into police but was ignored. The talks that could end months of global economic chaos. But will the leaders of two of the world's most powerful nations agree a deal? That's all coming up on The World with me, Barbara Serra. Good evening. It's been described as the storm of the century, one of the strongest ever hurricanes to make landfall in the Atlantic. A disaster of unprecedented catastrophe, that's according to the Red Cross. And tonight, several islands in the Caribbean are assessing the scale of the devastation it's left in its wake. Well, over the past 24 hours, Hurricane Melissa swept over Jamaica and Cuba. At its most powerful, its winds reached 185 miles an hour. That's stronger than Hurricane Katrina, which destroyed New Orleans 20 years ago. Well, Melissa's now been downgraded to a Category 2 and is moving northeast towards the Bahamas. Meteorologists say its rapid strengthening was fueled by abnormally warm Caribbean waters. So what do we know? Well, in Haiti, at least 40 people were killed. That's according to the country's Civil Protection Agency. In Jamaica, there have been 4 confirmed deaths, and parts of the worst affected parish, St. Elizabeth, are said to be completely submerged. More than 730,000 people are still in shelters in Cuba, with mountain roads blocked and houses destroyed with their roofs blown off. NBC News correspondent George Solis is in Kingston, the capital of Jamaica, and he sent us this update.
Hurricane Melissa now moving through Cuba, where more than 730,000 people were evacuated. It made historic landfall in Jamaica as a strong Category 5. Now, here in the capital city of Kingston, we were spared the worst of the destructive winds, but we still saw some of those tropical 4-storm winds that did do some damage to infrastructure, like this billboard here behind me. Now, the damage assessment is only just beginning, but some of those images coming out of those hard-hit areas are really staggering. You have buildings that were underwater, anything that wasn't concrete just blowing away. Officials saying that their assessment will begin as soon as they are able to, especially with the roads potentially being a mess. One thing they also plan on doing is assessing the nation's airports, both in Montego Bay and in Kingston. And depending on what they find, they may be able to start those crucial relief flights to bring aid to those hardest hit areas and areas that are frankly going to need it most. President Trump also announcing that the U.S. will provide humanitarian aid. Now, communications on the part of the island where the eye hit, where the storm was the strongest, has been spotty. Officials quickly working to restore some power there, some cell phone towers, so communications can begin. Still no question on when people may be able to fly home, especially for those tourists that are stranded there, about 23,000 at last check. A lot of work still left ahead, again, in these early hours as the damage assessment only begins.
Let me show you just how much damage Hurricane Melissa has brought to the region. Well, the flat bridge over the Rio Cobre River, which connects Kingston, Jamaica, to the north coast, is completely submerged after the river burst its banks. In St. Elizabeth, the high street in Black River Town is covered in rubble with only parts of the buildings still standing. Black River Anglican Church is on a small plot just off the high street, and it dates back to at least the early 19th century. The tower is still standing, but the rest of the building, as you can see, has been flattened. Well, in what threatens to be a foreshadowing of developments in Jamaica, officials in Haiti say that at least 40 people have died in floods that followed the heavy rain brought by Hurricane Melissa. Guy Faubert Vittelhern works with World Vision in Haiti, and I asked him how they are responding in the wake of the storm.
World Vision right now is conducting early assessment, contacting our churches, partners in the field, and volunteer networks just to really assess the damage and the needs of the affected population. So we are talking about mainly a lot of displaced people here in Port-au-Prince, where I'm located, and also in the regions that have seen and received the brunt of the hurricane with heavy rains. In some places, we've seen landslides, a lot of flood damages. We are also hearing about a crop loss, which is detrimental to many families, particularly those in rural areas.
You mentioned the landslides, and of course, as far as we know, at least 40 people have died across Haiti. But it's the flooding that seems to have had a huge impact as well. So right now, do you have a clear idea of what has caused the worst damage? Is it the impact of Melissa, or has it been the flooding as an aftermath?
I believe it's the amount of rain that we've received following or during the whole week that Melissa was in the Atlantic. So we've been receiving rain for more than a week now, and up to 200 millimeters, according to specialists. And this has definitely had an impact on the soil ability to, with a lot of population living in very dangerous areas, prone to landslide, prone to mudslides, but also the flooding with people living generally near rivers, near water banks. All those are definitely causes of these damages and disasters that we are witnessing right now.
Yes, and of course, I mean, rivers have already burst their banks, causing a lot of damage. You mentioned the agriculture there. Just talk us through the impact that would have on Haiti specifically, where a lot of people live off agriculture.
Well, agriculture is the main livelihood of the majority of the population, and particularly in those areas, we are in the season where they started planting and hoping to harvest very soon. Unfortunately, with the heavy rains and a lot of wind that we've received lately, those have been lost.
We've seen Melissa sweep across Jamaica, Cuba, and Haiti. Talk us through what Haiti's particular vulnerabilities are.
Haiti's particular vulnerabilities rely on a lack of structure. We face those hurricanes and natural disasters almost yearly, but it seems that nationally we are never prepared to face them in terms of the infrastructure to reduce as much as possible the impact of those adverse situations, which makes it even more difficult even to displace population from dangerous areas, to move them to safe shelters many times. It's a struggle. It's very hard. It's very difficult. The logistics is generally not there. To do the prevention work that would need to be done in order to at least reduce the loss of lives.
Well, as many as 8,000 British citizens were caught up in Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. We heard from one of those on holiday in Montego Bay, Stephen Ramsden, who sent us this video message.
Didn't really know much of what's really going on, and as the storm hit, they were telling us things, posting notes through our doors, just letting us know what to do, telling us don't go near the windows, don't open the balcony, stay in your room, and then they were told us that we're going to be locked down for the next 48 hours. Things keep changing. Obviously, the clean-up here is like immense. The staff are working really hard. They're doing everything they can to do it. Everybody's been wonderful, to be honest, but it was very scary during the storm. We didn't really know what to expect, so we don't expect weather like this. We feel so bad, and so for the Jamaican people, as I've been out of the complex a little bit and seen the actual destruction of what's gone on. The houses are no longer there, the power lines are down. It's pretty bad, to be honest, but just hope these Jamaican people get their life back together and everything goes well for them.
The view of a tourist there, and coming up, we'll speak to our correspondent live and hear from a government minister in Jamaica. But before that, I want to update you on another developing story. A migrant sex offender who was released from prison in the UK last week has told Sky News he tried to hand himself into police a day before he was arrested, but was ignored by officers. Hadush Kabatu was deported to his home country of Ethiopia last night, 4 days after his accidental release. He spent 2 days at large before being arrested in London on Sunday morning. Kabatu was also repeatedly questioned on his appalling crimes, but Sky News has chosen not to broadcast the denial of a convicted sex offender. Our national correspondent Tom Parmenter reports.
As he climbed up the aircraft steps at Heathrow, convicted sex offender Hadush Kabatu was being kicked out of Britain. Sky News understands he'd just been paid £500 of government money, a payment the Home Office removals team made to speed up his deportation. When he landed in Ethiopia, he agreed to speak to Sky News. We asked him what happened when prison staff released him by mistake last Friday. For hours, he wandered around outside Chelmsford Prison, asking people where he should go.
Who can responsible for me? Where is Home Office? Where is the immigrant? I will tell them, but also all of the experts are ignored me. And also, the time it should be fast. I am homeless. I am not eating at that time. Somebody, they are pass. Where is the station? Where is the train station? Someone helped me. I will take the ticket, £18.
On Saturday, we spoke exclusively to a delivery driver who witnessed what happened at the prison and spoke to Kabatu.
He walked out of the airlock. He then kept returning back to the airlock and basically saying to the officers there, where am I going? What am I doing? They basically were almost sending him away. It's like, go. You've been released, you go.
And so began a 48-hour manhunt stretching across London for a man convicted of sex offences against a 14-year-old girl, just days after he'd arrived on a small boat across the Channel. A case that prompted widespread protests. On Friday evening, after his release, still in his grey prison tracksuit, he was in a library in Dalston, East London. The following day, Kabatu claims he tried to hand himself in.
On the morning, Saturday, I get a police. Look here. Please, I am wanted man. I arrested. I will give you my hand. Please help him. Where is police station? He ignored me. He drive. But also, I am not unknown. The police station, where is the place? I am not Google it, but also I get the police. I will give you my hand. Please help me. Where is the police station? Take me. My name is Hadush Kabatu. I am national of Ethiopia. Please, I want the mistake release from Chelmsford Prison. Please help me.
He was eventually arrested after a member of the public spotted him in Finsbury Park, North London, the next day, on Sunday morning. Responding to Kabatu's claims, the Metropolitan Police told Sky News the Met is not aware of any evidence to support the claims that Kabatu approached officers on Saturday morning. The actions of officers who responded to the sighting of him on Sunday morning show how seriously they were taking the manhunt. Kabatu's actions on the morning of his arrest were more like those of someone trying to avoid officers, not trying to hand himself in. They are two differing accounts within this deeply embarrassing episode for the government. On Sunday, the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary David Lammy thanked the police officers who had arrested him. The Ministry of Justice has reiterated that it welcomes the deportation and have started a full investigation into what happened. Sky News has chosen not to broadcast other parts of Kibatu's interview. He's been removed from the country as a convicted sex offender. How the authorities managed that process is under huge scrutiny. Tom Parmenter, Sky News.
Let's go to Gaza now, where officials say more than 100 people, including dozens of children, have been killed in Israeli airstrikes. The strikes are the deadliest since the ceasefire began earlier this month and come after an Israeli soldier was killed in the territory. Hamas and Israel both insist they are committed to the truce, but the escalating violence presents a serious challenge to the deal. Our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons reports.
In Gaza, they are horribly accustomed to this. The desperate search for survivors in bombed-out buildings. This was Gaza City, one of the places where Israel vented its fury. It claims to have targeted senior Hamas figures. But here, amid the rubble, Sky News journalists were told that the victims included small children.
I don't understand who they're trying to kill here. 2 young girls, one only 3 years old, and a boy even younger. There's 1 man here and 2 teenagers. So really, who are they trying to kill?
The attack's retaliation after this soldier, Yonah Ephraim Feldbaum, was shot dead in Rafah. Hamas insists it wasn't involved in that attack, but the reprisals came anyway. And they were ferocious. The Gaza Health Ministry says 104 people were killed, nearly half of them children, with a further 250 injured. For those in Gaza, as the airstrikes came in, this didn't look or feel like a ceasefire.
We are not receiving any support from any country in the world, neither Arab nor Western. Don't you see? The Israelis are striking us constantly and no one is stopping them. You can see for yourselves, they bomb homes and kill innocent people, even those who have nothing to do with anything.
Israel's fury is also stoked by this, a video filmed by a military drone that appears to show Hamas operatives first burying the body of an Israeli hostage and then pretending to find those remains. A sign, says Israel, that Hamas is treating the ceasefire agreement with contempt.
Hamas can find our hostages' bodies, and we know this based on evidence and precise intelligence. It is evident, it is clear, and yesterday's drone video proves they are holding onto the remains of our hostages to pull stunts to prolong this.
Israel declared the ceasefire was back in action and then launched one more strike, saying there was an imminent threat of attack. So is this destruction a sign that the ceasefire is falling apart? No, according to the man who did so much to achieve it and whose name is closely aligned with the deal.
Hamas is a very small part of peace in the Middle East, and they have to behave. They're on the rough side, but they said they would be good, and if they're good, they're going to be happy, and if they're not good, they're going to be terminated.
The people of Gaza have suffered so much pain over the past 2 years, with more than 68,000 killed, that funerals are nothing new. Optimism is a rare sensation here, an emotion that blossomed but which suddenly, once again, feels out of place. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
You're watching The World. Still to come, we're going to speak live to the Jamaican government as we try to get a clearer picture of the damage done by Hurricane Melissa.
a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back, and we return to Jamaica now, where in the past hour we've learned of the first confirmed deaths following Hurricane Melissa, the strongest recorded storm ever to hit the island. Well, I'm joined now by Dana Morris-Dixon, Jamaican Minister of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Madam, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. We really appreciate your time in what, of course, we understand is a very busy moment for you. So if, first of all, you could give us an assessment insofar as you can in the areas that you've been able to access of what the impact has been on Jamaica of Hurricane Melissa.
Right. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for, really caring about Jamaica. The hurricane was a Category 5. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that. And it really hit the western part of Jamaica pretty bad. So that's St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland, St. James, where Montego Bay is. I know a lot of tourists go to Montego Bay. They were hit very hard there. And so we are cut off from many of those areas. Roads are impassable, communities are marooned right now, and we are really working hard to try to get to those areas. There was widespread flooding, the winds were unbelievable. I was in Kingston and it was really, really strong winds there. So it's very difficult to think what my fellow citizens went through on the western end of the island. It is absolutely devastating, and we've not been able to reach many of them. So that is our biggest concern right now, is getting to them, getting communication back up. There's so many families trying to reach their loved ones that cannot reach them because of the loss in communication. A Cat 5 is going to bring down your telecoms infrastructure, and that is also causing a lot of heartache in Jamaica.
Understandable. And the people that you're talking about in and around St. Elizabeth, the people that you can't really reach and communicate with, how many are we talking about of Jamaica's population? Roughly how many people live there that you can't reach?
In terms of the western part of the island, you're probably looking at about maybe 1 million people or under that. It's a lot of people because our next city, our second city is Montego Bay. It's really the center of our tourism product. There is so much industry that takes place there. St. Elizabeth is where we get a lot of our agricultural products. Our beautiful agricultural products come from there. And then there's Westmoreland, where we have Negril, another tourist capital. And so these are very important areas for Jamaica's commercial activities or farming activities. And the most important contributor to GDP in Jamaica is the tourism sector. So it is quite devastating, and we don't know how many persons may have lost their lives. We have 4 confirmed, but as I said, we can't get into many areas at this point.
So what are your priorities as a government right now, trying to access those areas? Also, that there's lots of the other areas that perhaps haven't had the same scale of devastation, but obviously need support. So what are you prioritizing right now?
All right. So right now we're prioritizing getting to those areas that are marooned. And so we're getting some international assistance. Many countries have promised to help us. We are opening back the airport in Kingston this afternoon. As we speak, it's being opened. So that will allow humanitarian and relief supplies to get into the country so we can deliver it to those individuals. We'll need a lot of heavy equipment to move all that debris so that we can access those that are marooned, and we need to get food to those people also. And so across the island, the entire island was affected, but the most impact was on the western side of the island. And there are many people without electricity this morning. It was 77% of the country without electricity. Throughout the day, we've been trying to restore it in the areas that weren't so badly damaged, and communication is still quite difficult.
Because it was quite a slow-moving hurricane, I mean, in a way, that's also what made it so powerful. But I suppose the silver lining might have been that you had time to prepare. And so you have been preparing for the impact in so much as was possible. And a lot of countries, including the UK, have offered assistance. I'm just wondering whether you're confident that now that you're going to reopen the airport in a few hours, what you need is actually on the way, whether it's aid, whether it's equipment, whatever it is that you may need.
Yes, and we are so grateful to the international community. We've created a needs list, and we've shared that with the international community. We also have a website, which is supportjamaica.gov.jm, supportjamaica.gov.jm, which is the official government source for support. We launched it yesterday, and so many people from around the world have been helping us and supporting us so much, because we do need a lot of assistance in many areas, and people can just pledge their assistance. It doesn't have to be money. It can also be in kind. And we're so grateful to the international community. So many people in the UK have reached out and want to provide assistance. The UK government also has reached out. And so we know that we are going to need help to rebuild. We're confident we can rebuild, and we're very resilient, and we're going to do everything we can with the support of the international community to bring back beautiful areas like Treasure Beach and Montego Bay to what we know they can be.
I mean, obviously, right now, there are immediate concerns. As you mentioned, reaching the people that have been cut off, you know, unfortunately, seeing what help there may be, and potentially seeing if more people have died, and assisting those who have survived. But in the longer term, what do you predict will be the real challenges for Jamaica in the weeks and months to come?
Yeah, there'll be lots of challenges, because we have to rebuild entire parishes. I'm Minister of Education too, and I'm told of schools that no longer exist. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to educate those children that no longer have a school to go to. All of the commercial activities that used to take place in particular areas, we're going to have to rebuild. This is a massive rebuilding exercise, and we're going to have to do it with resilience built in, because hurricanes are continuing to come, and with climate change, they're getting more and more ferocious. And so we are going to have to rebuild, and we're going to have to rebuild with resilience in mind.
Dana Morris-Dixon, Jamaican Minister of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. Madam, thank you so much, first of all, for sharing everything that you're experiencing there in Jamaica with us, and for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, our correspondent Martha Kellner reports now on Hurricane Melissa and how it's devastated parts of the Caribbean.
October 2025, the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. It has been devastating.
It's a date and a day nobody here will forget. The aftermath of the strongest hurricane to hit this island since records began. They lived through this. A reminder, as if anyone here needed it, of the might of a Category 5 storm. This is the main street in the community of Black River. Colourful homes, restaurants and bars all wrecked. Villages and towns contorted by winds stronger than anyone here has ever experienced. With many roads blocked, emergency services struggled to reach the worst affected areas, even with the help of Good Samaritans.
The conditions here are devastating. Catastrophic is a mild term based on what we are observing here.
Hurricane Melissa tore through the heart of this island. This region is known as Jamaica's breadbasket for its crop growing. It was still recovering from Hurricane Beryl, which caused widespread damage here last year. But this is far worse.
The roof just taken clean off there.
It's gone. Yeah, it peeled off.
Nikki's house was directly in the hurricane's path. She hunkered in the garage as it hit.
When it really started kicking, it was truly scary. The building was shaking, the windows were bowing in despite the shutters, the hurricane shutters. Water was coming in under the door, and it was just this most unearthly noise. It's not a howling. It's almost like an express train.
How difficult is the recovery going to be for some of these places?
Unimaginable. Jamaica has never had a storm of this intensity, this strength, and a lot of people didn't take it as seriously as they should have. It's just about as bad as it could have got.
A little bit of a waterfall in here right now.
Around 25,000 tourists are still stuck on the island. Most rode out the storm in hotels, some of which were also damaged. The challenge now is getting them out and aid in. This is one of the country's two major airports, a gateway to luxury resorts on the island's north coast. It won't be able to open for some time, but the other airport in the capital, Kingston, will resume flights soon. A message of resilience echoing across Jamaica.
Well, the fact of the matter is that this won't be the first and the last hurricane that we've experienced. We had a major Cat 4 37 years ago and one 37 years before that. So we've been experiencing this for decades, and we become more experienced and more resilient. And it's time now for the government and the world to come to the assistance, and let's get Jamaica back on track in the shortest possible time.
Families are still trapped in their homes in some of these communities, according to authorities. The Jamaican healthcare system is, they say, facing one of its most severe crises in recent memory. One hospital is out of commission on the island and 2 others strained. The US is sending urban rescue and disaster relief teams to the Caribbean. Finding any survivors and preventing the spread of disease here will be their first job. Martha Cal.
And let's cross live now to Martha. She joins us from Miami. And Martha, I guess now Melissa is sort of, heading through the Caribbean towards Bermuda and weakening somewhat. The problem is that experts say this is hardly a one-off, and we may see more of this extreme weather in years to come.
Yeah, that's the very sad reality. Hurricane Melissa has, as you say, now weakened to a Category 1 hurricane as it heads towards the Bahamas. There is the potential that it could once again gather strength as it passes over the ocean towards expected landfall on the island of Bermuda. Certainly on Jamaica, though, the worst of that ferocious wind and persistent rain has now passed. It was night time as that hurricane moved over the island finally after an hours-long assault, and many people waking up at first light to those scenes of complete devastation, really. But it's hard to gauge just how bad, how extensive the damage and the loss of life in Jamaica is. And that's because a lot of the roads into the worst affected parts of the island are blocked at the moment, either with debris, fallen trees, floodwater, or because bridges have simply been washed away by the strength of the rain and the burst rivers there. So authorities battling their way towards some of those worst affected areas on the west of the island. Towns that may be familiar to some people in the UK, places like Black River. You saw the pictures of that town in my report. The town of White House also badly hit, and Montego Bay, which is one of the major tourist towns in Jamaica. But these places are also home to a lot of local Jamaican people. We know that according to authorities, some people are still trapped in their homes. The Jamaican Prime Minister has done an aerial assessment of the damage. He explained, or he described it as completely catastrophic. So the recovery effort, the relief missions, still very much underway in Jamaica and in Cuba and Haiti too. More than 20 people have lost their lives because of severe flooding in Haiti as well. So a completely devastating storm across the Caribbean.
Martha Kellner with that overview there of the impact of Hurricane Melissa from Miami. Martha, thank you. This is The World. Coming up next, reports of mass killings as paramilitary forces capture a key city in Sudan's Darfur region.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Welcome back. We turn now to Sudan, where there are reports of mass killings after paramilitary forces took control of the city of Al-Fasher in North Darfur. The Sudanese military fled the long-besieged city in recent days, leaving tens of thousands of civilians at the mercy of the rapid support forces. And today it's emerging. Hundreds may have been killed in a massacre at a maternity hospital. Our Africa correspondent, Yusra El-Baghir, has the story.
Human rights observers believe that thousands of people are currently being killed by the rapid support forces in al-Fashir, with bloodstains and dead bodies even being seen from space. Doctors, journalists, and first responders are currently being held captive by the RSF, all in a telecommunications blackout. This is the humanitarian catastrophe that many warned would happen if al-Fashir fell to the RSF. The berm that the RSF has been using to besiege the city in recent months was then used as an execution site by their forces. North Darfur's authorities have said around 460 civilians have been killed in the last functioning hospital in the city. We can't independently verify the figure, but satellite images analyzed by Yale Humanitarian Labs show clusters of white by red stains.
In the past 48 hours since we've had imagery over al-Fashir, we see a proliferation of objects that weren't there before RSF took control of al-Fashir, and they are approximately 1.3 meters to 2 meters long, which is critical because in satellite imagery at very high resolution, that's the average length of a human body lying vertical. What we also see in some of these objects is a C shape and a J shape, which is extremely important because when people are shot on the run, they will often fall in a way that presents as a C or a J because of the bend in their hips or their knees as they hit the ground. Additionally, we're seeing a proliferation of a phenomena we've never seen before in satellite imagery, which is a red discoloration.
Doctors, journalists, and politicians are among the civilians that the RSF is holding incommunicado, with some families sharing that they've been contacted to pay a ransom. The man in this video is seen asking his loved ones to pay for his release. So who's backing the RSF? The United Arab Emirates has been widely accused of supporting the RSF in this war and pushing their capture of Sudan. No, the UAE denies these claims. Intelligence officers from both sides told Sky News that the UAE was funneling arms to the RSF through Chad. This was even during the height of their siege on al-Fashir, bolstering their arms supply as they were starving and shelling the population of the city into submission. The international community has essentially failed Sudan, and now thousands of people in al-Fashir are paying the ultimate price. And as the RSF cements their control of the Darfur region, all we can do is watch and wait to see who manages to survive.
And Yusra is with me in the studio now. Yusra, thank you so much for being with us. Look, your report is a very difficult to watch. And as you were mentioning, the body's literally visible from space. And it's hard to get information out. So what are your sources telling you about just how bad this massacre is, considering that Sudan is already the worst humanitarian crisis in the world?
So we have not been able to contact anyone in al-Fashir over the last 4 days, since the moment that the RSF entered the center of the city and captured the garrison. What we have heard from doctors' unions is that a nurse and 2 doctors were killed very early on, and that doctors, some have managed to flee, especially that hospital, Saudi hospital, but are unreachable in camps like Tawila, where they're fearing reprisals as the RSF cements their control of the state. But there are also doctors who are being held by the RSF, along with civilian journalists and civilian politicians. And we've been seeing these videos of people pleading with their families to pay these ransoms. But one incident I've been told of is that a family paid the ransom and then received more messages asking for more money. So you've got a city that housed so many people, hundreds of thousands of people. And as people fled, as the siege, the RSF siege got worsened and tightened, many held on in the city. And we've been told by many sources that the Sudanese armed forces managed to secure safe passage for some of their soldiers who chose to take the deal and left close to 200,000 civilians behind. And that's the sad, devastating reality for civilians in Darfur. They're being let down by the international community, they're being let down by the army, and they are suffering in complete silence in this media blackout.
Absolutely. So you talk in your report about who's backing the RSF, who's backing these forces. You mentioned the United Arab Emirates. What's the motivation here? How do they fit into the dynamics of Sudan?
This is a capture of a country that had already been sold for parts by Omar al-Bashir, the dictator that came before the revolution. And what the UAE has made very clear, and even in some videos by one of their politicians, is that they wanted their investments in Sudan to hold. The RSF was fighting with the UAE and Saudi in Yemen, and that was a period in 2018 where they received training, but also funding by the UAE, and were able to start a recruitment drive in Sudan to have young men join their forces. That relationship developed and built, and eventually, when a power struggle after al-Bashir's ouster took place, they backed the RSF. That was their horse in the race. And they've consistently inserted themselves in mediation talks with the approval of Western countries like the UK and US, and blocked any hope of a ceasefire. The RSF and the Sudanese armed forces were security partners for 20 years. The army initially armed and trained the RSF. They know how to cut deals. The involvement of the UAE has made peace in Sudan impossible.
Okay, usually, like you say, it's difficult to get information out, but I know that you keep on trying and you're keeping a spotlight on this story. So thank you. Africa correspondent Yusra Bage. Thank you. Now, Donald Trump's week-long tour of Asia draws to a close tomorrow with the most significant meeting of the trip, a high-stakes summit with China's Xi Jinping in South Korea. Washington and Beijing have been locked in a trade war started by the US president when he returned to office in January. But Trump has been optimistic about striking a deal as he prepares to meet the Chinese leader face-to-face. Our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith is in South Korea and sent us this report.
The last stop on Trump's Asia tour, and the South Koreans were not to be outdone. YMCA on the runway, formality, flattery, and ego-stroking gifts.
I'd like to wear it right now.
This is Korea's highest honor, in recognition, they say, of his efforts to bring peace to this peninsula.
Thank you very much, everybody.
But the reality is Trump and his tariffs have wrought havoc here. This meeting aimed to work out a deal. So much of this region relies on US protection. There's a sense it now comes at a cost.
Thank you very much. Economic security is, in fact, national security. I made the case that the global trading system was broken and in urgent need of reform, had to be fixed. The system had been exploited by countries that broke the rules at the expense of countries that followed the rules to a T.
There are no prizes for guessing who he was talking about, and which other leader the world will be watching.
For all of Trump's gravitas, for all of his sway in this region, his agenda this week has been influenced by another great power, another unignorable presence. And that, of course, is China. Managing that geopolitical relationship is far more complicated than anything else he's done this week, and it is the real metric of success.
Indeed, his trade war with China is the context that underpins everything. Trump and Xi will sit down on Thursday, the aim to regain some stability.
So would you say that this is one of the most advanced robots in China right now?
I can see that, yeah.
So it's pretty special?
Yes, it's pretty special.
This is exactly the sort of Chinese industry that Trump has tried to restrain with controls of high-end chips. But he has not been very successful in the face of Chinese innovation. At this firm in Beijing, they say there is a renewed confidence in China, in the fact it can go it alone.
America's controls on certain chips are making Chinese chip manufacturers strive to achieve full domestic production for the robotics industry. I find the pace of technological innovation in this industry remarkably swift. It's exciting.
There is still significant anger here about Trump and the way he does business. A deal with China might benefit Asia, but it leaves a bitter taste too.
I think he maintains a moderate relationship with stronger countries like China, but makes unreasonable demands on countries like Japan and South Korea, which he has always called allies.
Many countries have little choice but to concede to his will. China will not be one of them. Helen Ann Smith, Sky News in Gyeongju, South Korea.
Well, I'm joined now by the chairman of the Harvard China Fund, Professor William Kirby. Professor Kirby, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. So quite a key meeting, the one taking place tomorrow, certainly the first between the two leaders since Trump's second term in office. It could go either way. How do you predict it will go? What do you think are the priorities for both leaders?
I think the priorities for both leaders are to
call something a deal that is in fact going to be a truce, and let us hope that it holds rather better than the truce that we've seen in Gaza. But it is basically trying to put a little bit of a floor under the deterioration of U.S.-China relations that began with Trump's first term, but have been accelerated in his second.
You say it began basically with Donald Trump, and I suppose he would maybe see now that the tariff war hasn't quite worked with China as it has with other countries with smaller economies, of course. Do you expect to see a bit of a turnaround from him?
I don't really. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have a quick learning curve because the tariffs have not worked, actually, I should argue, with virtually any country. But with China, American restrictions, American sanctions have only sped Chinese innovation. China is home to an extraordinary cadre of engineering and scientific talent. And our own tariffs have hurt American farmers, American consumers, rather more than they have hurt their Chinese counterparts. So calling something a deal, but at least bringing a truce to the situation that we now have, where China will once again export at its own will rare earths. The Americans will be able to sell a few more soybeans, although they've already lost much of that global market thanks to Mr. Trump's tariffs. This will be a friendly meeting without question, but we are all, both the United States and China, much worse off than we were a year ago.
So you seem to have outlined what you think this truce might look like from a tariffs point of view between China and the U.S. It's not just about tariffs, though. There's all sorts of geopolitical issues and around security as well. How much do you think that will figure in the meeting, or do you think actually for them it mainly is about tariffs?
I wish there were more about major geopolitical issues. China's ongoing support for Russia in Ukraine, that ought to be at the highest level of the agenda in terms of American and European national security. The continuing threat of North Korea's nuclear arsenal, which has the potential to destabilize much of Northeast Asia, because if North Korea continues to have such weapons in time, South Korea, Japan, and perhaps even Taiwan will have them. And that will not make this region more secure. Those two large issues somehow or other are not to be discussed compared to whether or not it's a 45 or 55% tariff on Chinese goods coming to the United States. It's rather remarkable.
So, I mean, the U.S. and China have agreed a framework of a trade deal. Now, listen, Donald Trump is obviously unpredictable. That's the only predictable thing about him. But do you predict that there is a kind of worst-case scenario where it could all spiral out of control? Or actually, do you think the mere fact that the two leaders are meeting is a signal that this truce that you mentioned and that you hope for will actually come to pass?
Oh, I believe it will come to pass. I mean, in most administrations, of course, you don't have summit meetings without careful preparation and without everything being agreed to in advance. With this administration, you never quite know for sure, but I feel confident that they will announce a deal that will be, in fact, a truce, one in which, Mr. Trump has changed his mind on tariffs about 30 times since the so-called Liberation Day of earlier this year. And so that there is a built-in instability in this. And China would have, certainly, they will pause their restrictions on rare earths to the United States. But that's something that they too could change in an instant, depending on what the American side does.
How do you think, as a final point, that China has viewed the past few months, less than a year now, with Donald Trump in power? He's trying to assert the U.S., America first. He's trying to rebalance, as he says, the situation between China and the U.S. But how do you think China's viewing it?
I think China's viewing it as having survived a rather substantial test, enormous pressure, showing that it too has the capacity to be, whether it's in AI or in semiconductors of all sorts, the capacity to withstand American sanctions. Just look at what Huawei has done over the last few years to reinvent itself after the near-death experience of American sanctions.
Professor Kirby, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to leave it there. We'd love to speak to you again after the meeting takes place tomorrow. Chairman of the Harvard China Fund, sir, thank you. That's all from us on The World. We'll be back tomorrow at 9. News at 10 is next with the rest of the day's news. Stay with us. Bye-bye.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories. This is insane. I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.